Can someone help me understand why rating curves like this are a thing? I just can't process it. If you hate something in your life so much and you're not getting any benefit from it, why are you still engaging with it? Let's tell you all a story. It's not going to be a convoluted one. Like, it's still going to be stupid, but it's not going to be long. It all started on a dark end. It was 2 p.m. on a Saturday and I got a notification from Instagram. Apparently, Iman sent me a reel while I was asleep. And that's not true because I know he sent the reel about an hour ago and he just want me to open the app now. But anyway, I obliged and I opened the app. And once I'm responding to all the reels Ivan has sent me, I have to respond to all the reels everyone else has sent me. That's how my friends know I'm alive now. So anyway, I scrolled through a few reels and 30 minutes later, it's 6 p.m. And I'm like, what the fuck happened to all that time? So I decided to close the app, the prime time. So I decided to close the app, the primetime content of Twitter reach bait. And maybe I'll switch up my hourly spot provider. I don't know, maybe. But just before I switch up, I come across this. If you're a regular around these parts, you've probably picked up on the fact that I love movies. And what I love even more about movies is the fact that I get to talk about them. Like most people, the way to my heart is obviously kindness, but the way to my mind, by no fault of TikTok, it is my attention. And lately, my new addiction has been movies. And this movie, Hamnet, I had high expectations. I went into this movie experience expected to be underwhelmed. I mean, 2025 was such a great year for movies. One battle after another, Pukonia, The War of the Worlds, No Other Choice, Sentimental Value.
Hey, listen to me, get out of there, now!
Okay. There was so much greatness to compare this movie to. And even then, it delivered. Only 2 movies in the past 10 years have made me cry. And both of them have Paul Mescal in them. Only one of them has him in a slutty earring, so clearly it's superior. Anyway, I love this movie, I give it everything. I'm low-key glad it's not being considered as a front runner for the Oscars, because I do not want everything that happened with Everything Everywhere All at Once to happen with this movie. And this movie was extremely hard to find. It didn't come out in cinemas anywhere around me, and I had to wait centuries until it was available to buy or rent anyway. And then on February 3rd, it was finally available, but even then, I could only buy it if I was in the US. So naturally, I paid for a VPN, right, so that I could pretend to be in the US and then buy Hamnet. I want to give you my money, and I load it up on Apple TV, and then the price goes up from $10 to $25. What the fuck? And that's absurd, right? But I'm fine. I love this movie. I'm going to watch it either way. And I tried paying for it. Turns out I can't pay for the movie with my card because my bank is not international. So I have to call up my friend Andrew and then tell him like, oh, bro, I need your card. But that wasn't even the end of it. Basically, I went through a whole lot to be able to watch this movie. But I love this so much that I will go through every single one of those steps over and over again. So in my mind, other people must have given a lot to also be able to watch this movie. And this movie has 2 really moving, well, okay, I mean, it has more than 2, but there's 2 specific ones that are in my mind by now. And if you watch a movie, you know what I'm talking about. I cried during those scenes. I'm not going to get into any spoilers. I think everyone deserves to experience this movie. But I don't understand how you can watch this and have that be your takeaway. I understand that art is subjective and we all have different opinions and all that. But like, come on. Okay. I remember feeling angry at something like this before. I mean, I'm always angry on the internet, but it feels familiar. We'll get back to that later. But I think one reason why his reaction triggered me so hard is that lately, I would take a look around me and I would realize, holy fucking shit, I hate everybody here. And that feeling stings because 9 times out of 10, what you're doing doesn't matter as much as who you're doing it with. Like this channel, for example, I keep talking about all these things have issues with. If I was doing it with people I didn't like, I think I would have stopped. But their original thesis, Pine Friends, like that's how it is now. It's probably going to be that way in the future. But back to the whole hating people. If I could just flip a switch in my brain and I could stop hating them, I would do that. But right now, that would mean compromising so many things that I have like values on and like all of that. And I don't want to do that. But the lesson of the hour, the lesson of this hour, is that that's a me problem. The issue isn't them. It's not their fault that I use my own personal will and determination and like my ideologies and whatever to decide that I don't like them. And I shouldn't treat them in a way as if it's their fault. This you are agreeing with this. We act like it's our fault that we didn't like it. I read this tweet which was a reply to one of these messages. If it didn't work for you, that's fair. But mistaking a personal reaction for a definitive judgment about the work is a pretty common trap, often used to signal a kind of false intellectual or moral superiority. And that's so true. We keep using our dislikes as a way to feel like we are mentally superior to the people around us, like we're smarter enough that like everyone likes Marvel movies or everyone likes Bad Bunny. I don't have any actual reason to dislike them, but they are bad because I say so. And they just didn't resonate on a deeper level with me, bro. Maybe like there's no substance. And I don't like it and I have deemed it as bad. And if you disagree with me, you're just stupid. Oh no. Rather, you're not cultured enough to appreciate that this specific piece of work is so bad. Like, what the fuck? Nuance is dead. And social media killed it. It took me so much effort and time to get access to this movie, and I assume it did like at least half of that for this guy. So in my mind, it's like, why would you go through so much effort to get access to something and then even more effort to actually watch it if it's something that you know you probably won't like? And then I realized that that's the exact life I've been living. Bro, I'm a student. I have classes from freaking 8 to 4:30 p.m. every single day from Monday to Friday every week, and that's just my in-class learning hours. Like, I have so little free time to split between YouTube and work and school and having time to talk with my friends and my parents and eat it. And yet I spend so much of that limited time being angry at things on my phone. There's an element of irony poisoning to all this, where it feels cringe to like certain things. So even though I enjoy certain types of videos, like there's this video I keep seeing on Instagram, it's an AI reel of like some president singing and dancing to the funk song. I'm not going to show or mention their name because I'm sure you're all tired of seeing and hearing it, but that video is genuinely the funniest thing I have seen this entire year. Yet I can't bring myself to like it because now my likes on Instagram are public, and even though my account is private and only my friends and family have access to it, I don't want them to see that I like these things, because actually something like this is so cringe and beneath me. Like, I don't have free time, yet I'm spending so much of it finding reasons to hate something. No, finding reasons to hate everything. Like, come back to Hamnet for a second. Watching a movie nowadays, it feels like such a big investment of my time. I don't know, maybe not for you, but for people like me whose brains are cooked by like skibbity, watching the movie uninterrupted without looking at my phone feels like doing a 15-minute math pop quiz. So before I watch any movie, I just try to make sure that it's one I will enjoy. Whether that means asking my friends about it or like checking reviews on Letterboxd. Or actually, I found this account. Apparently he's famous, this guy, where all his reviews on movies are like within half a star of what I think about the movie. And I just check whether he has watched the movie, and if he liked it, I probably will like it. Like, things like that. And so when I'm watching the movie, instead of looking for things to hate or to critique or to I'm mostly thinking of how I can enjoy the experience. Like, you know, what I can gain from the movie and what it could mean and all of that. Because before I've seen the movie, I already expect to enjoy it. And if I'm 1 hour deep into the movie and literally nothing is working for me, I'll just stop watching the movie. Bailey, I can't pronounce her last name, I'm sorry. She has this great, amazing video about how we create our own problems. I'll link it in the description. But genuinely, I know that every time I spend an hour scrolling on Instagram Reels, when I'm done with that whole experience, I don't leave happy. So why don't I just uninstall the Instagram app? And even moving away from that way of thinking, where I just get rid of this thing that's causing problems in your life. Because I think it creates this whole avoidance personality type that I'm very susceptible to that, and I wouldn't like to treat myself in that way. I was reading this Reddit thread some time back where someone was giving recommendations for some movie or something like that. I really hope I can find this so that I link it. Basically, she listed this behemoth list, almost like she was competing with my descriptions of these videos. And what's amazing is that in the comments, somewhere in the comments, she said something along the lines of, I just had such a good time with all these things. I tend to be an enjoyer of things. And that line really struck me. Like, I tend to be an enjoyer of things. Is that just a thing that you can choose to do? Instead of approaching things as a cynic, I can view them as an enjoyer. And the thing about enjoyment is that it's so much harder to lie to yourself about how much you're enjoying something, or like rather the degree to which you enjoy something. Like, we can fake a smile, but we can't fake joy. And being an enjoyer involves allowing yourself the vulnerability to be moved by something. It's so much more radical than like the whole irony pill of it all, even though on the surface it doesn't seem that way. I keep coming back to this statement just because like it clouded my thoughts so much. I know my time is limited, so why should I spend it thinking about how much I hate things? I said earlier that I remembered being angry about this whole review thing some time back. And if you've been on this channel for like a little bit, as usual, that thing has to do with the phenomenon of Taylor Swift. Time for the segment where Pa talks about Taylor Swift. I think we need to differentiate between a content creator and an artist. Now, these are very rigid definitions. I'm just using these for the purposes of this video, but many artists have a few people who recognize their work, but then they barely get noticed. And then we see other people who record like some 20-second video and push a button, and then they get like 50 million views, simply because what they are talking about is what's trendy. But I don't really think the content art bubble is that binary. I think it stops being art when the creator stops creating what they want to make, and then they start making what other people think they should want to make. An artist is driven by expression. The work starts from an internal question and then it moves outwards. But I'll take content creators are mainly driven by delivery. The work starts with an audience or a platform. You are delivering and then it moves inward. So when you think of it this way, there's so many great sentiments that if somebody is just pumping out work after work after work, they are leaning more content creator and less artist. But even then, it's art, not content. And can content still not be art? Even in the current day, traditional artists have to think like creators to have the greatest impact and some financial return. And content creators constantly need to be artistic so that they can stand out to audiences. I don't think the binary is as separate as most people make it seem. Tell me later, but back to the whole Taylor Swift spectacle. She's probably the most famous musician that's alive right now. And I was in great anticipation for the life of a showgirl. I'm what you would call a closeted Swiftie. I stayed up to 4 a.m. just so that I could catch it like when she released it. And I loved this so much. It instantly became one of my favorite albums of hers. I listened to it one more time and then I went to bed. I was so happy. I slept. I woke up, I opened my phone, and the first thing that I see was the discourse. And then when I finally thought all of that was over, came the discourse about the discourse. The one weird thing about Taylor Swift is that whenever she has an album or an event or whatever, like we expect all these things to happen, but so much of the conversation is about all these random unrelated things, and so little of it is actually about the music itself. I don't want to spend a long time talking about all this, so I'm gonna just bring up the two review type people who came to my mind when I was thinking of this whole thing. Now, I don't have anything against any of them. I'm not even going to link them. I don't want people to do any weird things. People want to tell me weird, but I do know that they both had middling responses to this specific Taylor Swift album. I saw clips of them on Twitter where they basically had this expression. They said something along the lines of Taylor needs to take a break so that she can live a life, like take some time away from music and then come back with a banger. And that's just so disrespectful, because back to the tweet from earlier, just because you didn't like the album and you thought it was tacky or whatever doesn't make the album bad. Your opinion isn't a definitive judgment of the work. You can't tell someone to stop creating their art just because you are treating it as content. It's one thing to say that this is an album that I personally didn't care for, and it's another thing to say that this album is genuinely trash and is the worst thing to ever exist. With one, you're blaming the art, and with the other, you are just taking accountability for yourself. Like, you just didn't enjoy the album, and that's fine. You are referencing your experience. And then I come back to the question, if you hate it so much, why are you even listening? We've conflated having an opinion with performing a critique. And for whatever popularity is worth, The Life of a Showgirl was Taylor Swift's biggest album debut of all time. The Fate of Ophelia just became her fastest song to go from 0 to 1 billion streams. And Taylor has like 10 other albums. If you're a fan and this one didn't work for you, just go and listen to the other ones. Stop spending so much time listening to something that you supposedly hate. When we do this, we don't allow ourselves to reinterpret art. The first time that I watched After Sun, I didn't get it. But then a couple years passed and I went through a whole depressive phase, had some suicidal ideations. We've passed all of that, I'm fine, thankfully. But when I rewatched After Sun a couple months ago, it became one of my all-time favorite movies. Art can be one thing and art can be many things. And one thing that looks like one thing can be many things. And one thing that looks like many things can be one thing. I think I was drunk when I read that segment of the script. But hopefully you know what I mean. An artist is a person with a vision, and that vision manifest is the art. They made something from nothing. Like Hamlet, the book didn't exist, and then it did. Hamlet, the movie didn't exist, and then it did. These ideas within me didn't exist, and then they did. The script for this video didn't exist, and then it did. This video didn't exist, and then it did. Whether it's a music track or a mixed media piece, an artist had ambition and they stayed with it until it became a physical reality. That act alone deserves a level of respect that hating fails to acknowledge. Whenever I dislike a work of art, I first take it to myself. I didn't like it because it's against my values. It's not the way I like cinematography to be done. It's not the way I like it to be edited. Maybe it was too slow for my attention span. I don't like the instruments that they use. I don't like these rhythms. All of these are very valid reasons to have for why you didn't like art. And it speaks to why the art doesn't work for me and why it may not work for so many other people. But none of them are blaming the art itself. And some people feel like they have this societal obligation to let other people know that popular art is bad. Because good art doesn't necessarily last, it's popular ones that do. But good art does something better than lasting. It transcends time, it resonates in the heart and in the spirit, and even if not immediately, it causes real world change and thought and emotion beyond feeling. If my parents hadn't played me Matilda as a kid, I don't think I would be half as defiant as I am now. Like, I hate rules that exist just for the sake of existing. I always like looking to question these systems, and I'm glad that I'm Dawi. But I wasn't synthesizing these thoughts at the time I watched Matilda, but I was 7. And yet the impact is still with me even to this day. Criticisms like these are more harmful to growing artists and creatives because it's so much harder to move on from a comment about your art being so bad when you are just starting out. Especially when that comment doesn't even elaborate on why it's bad, they just call it bad for existing. There's a confidence in doing things where you've mastered the craft such that if somebody doesn't get it, you know, it doesn't say much about you, it's a them problem. But when you are now learning and people randomly come at you talking about how ass you are, it's so easy to fall into the trap and think you're not good enough and then just give up. But don't do that. For most passions, it really is just reps. But you always need to make something bad before you can make something great. And in the words of the amazing Catherine O'Hara of the studio, when you're done with all of this and all this time has passed and you make art that's good, it's good forever. And you will look back on all these past efforts and you realize like it actually was never even that bad to begin with. I think of human beings as works of art, the only continuous works of art where the art itself has a say in how it ends up. If my parents never played me Matilda, I don't think I would be half as defiant. But that didn't necessarily happen with my siblings. Just because something you made doesn't resonate with someone doesn't mean it won't resonate with everyone. Art changes us. And if choosing to fall out of a system where spending all my time hating things is such a wild decision and so esoteric, then to quote the showgirl herself, I'd rather burn my whole life down than listen to one more second of all this bitching and moaning. Because I won't cater to all these vipers dressed in empath clothing. But it wasn't so good. I was creating my whole problems. But I'm down with that. And hopefully you are too. Okay. You can go now. See those? All the fun video. I can't wait to see how that one turns out.